enjoying it, just recovering from the journey here. Definitely enjoying it. Yeah. The things we were listening to back at the beginning of the whole house music thing, we were listening to disco, of course, that was everywhere. And we were hearing, of course, the stuff coming from Europe, Kraftwerk, Telex, you know, Emmanuel Gottsching, stuff like that, and Giorgio Moroder. So pretty much all the stuff that was just available in the marketplace at the time was the stuff we kind of listened to, and a lot of the New York and Miami stuff. At the beginning, I wasn't really, I started working at age 15. So while other people were sneaking into clubs, I was at a job, so I didn't have the liberty to do that. But I did get to hear the music, you know, again, going back to disco, it was so widespread that it was all over the radio. And then we had this couple of good specialist shows on late at night and on the weekends. The guy that proposed the whole Hot Mix 5 concept to the radio station, Herb Kent, he had a show called the Herb Kent Punk Out, where they played all the missing persons and all this kind of radical stuff at its time. Yes, yeah. I can't say I was involved in college radio. I listened because that's where I got a lot of my jazz fusion and progressive rock. That's where I was going to the college radio station, and a little bit of reggae here and there. The few people that I did know, knew a couple of guys who were DJs, and one of them I found out later was a friend of Robert Owens, and he was the one that took the tape initially to Frankie Knuckles and Ron Hardy and got those guys playing it. He probably took it to some other individuals too, but you know. Of course, within the club culture where people were already familiar with the music, of course, yeah, they were happy about it because it's closer to community now. Now, people right there who may be in the club with you, or you know, live in your neighborhood or go to your school and things like that, so you felt closer to it than we felt like to maybe Earth, Wind and Fire and the Jackson 5 is like a million miles away. So it was more community, and all the people who were into it were really heavily into it because, again, you felt a connection to it because it's people right there in your community, and they were supportive of the releases, buying and everything. Now the outside world was kind of maybe more clueless that it even existed because just like now, your average person, all they really know about is radio or video channels and things like that. So anything outside of that, they would be unfamiliar with. Of course, Frankie Knuckles and Ron Hardy and Wayne Williams in Chicago, and then guys in New York, Tony Humphries, Larry Levan, and T. Scott. Some of those guys, you know, was some of the first individuals we started to encounter when we started to get invited to come perform at different clubs. Yeah. We were involved in the Tracks tour, which was kind of the first venture over to Europe. I think it's '87 for that. And yeah, I think pretty much Larry Sherman at Tracks had set that up, and we kind of just toured around the UK. I think there was a couple of days maybe in Scotland, I think maybe, but mostly UK. And it was great. I mean, a lot of the towns like Nottingham, Birmingham, it was like, we were wondering who else was there, whether these people were there to see us, but they were. We were surprised about that, you know, pleasantly surprised, of course. It was a little different in London, where it was more kind of almost empty in London at that time. They kind of hadn't caught on, but the northern towns seemed to get it first. Well, Mr. White isn't Mr. Fingers' album. It's not Mr. White album, so he's not on the album at all. Yeah, I've done some singles with him, but you know, kind of getting back to my own roots with my release with the album. And I have a couple of guest vocalists. I have Lady Ray, isn't it Tiki Man? Yeah, Paul St. Hilary, yeah. And myself singing on a few things. But back to your question, I met Chad in Memphis. I was kind of going around seeing what was available as far as entertainment, as far as music and things like that around town. And I kind of repeatedly saw him kind of bouncing through the clubs, you know, energetically as he does, you know. And then I end up hearing him sing and say, well, okay, well, maybe I need to kind of connect with this guy and see if we can do something. So it's pretty simple, no kind of alien abduction kind of a thing or anything like that. It's just more normal meeting and, you know, recognizing a talent, a potential talent. Well, as far as the new album, I guess it's just the continuation of, you know, the progression that I had been making, but somehow got stopped for 12 or 13 years in between there. But just kind of picking up where I left off a little bit. It's kind of one of the guys at Clone mentioned that he kind of thought it was like the meeting of Alien and the Mr. Fingers soulful stuff, which is quite a keen observation, because it really sounds like that to me myself, where the soulful stuff is there, the more smooth jazz vibe is there, the acid stuff is there. So we kind of have a little bit of some of everything in the package. Well, I can't say I get much time to keep up with what's going on, because there's so much coming so quick, and then we're involved in moving around from place to place, so you kind of fall out of touch with what's going on, and you pretty much have to rely on whatever DJs you encounter or mixes you're able to kind of check out on the internet to kind of discover music, or if you have time to get on the different sites and just kind of play Russian roulette, you know, and preview things. But I can't say that I've been able to devote much time to it for, say, the past 2-3 years, because I've been working on the album, developing the show and evolving the show, and just a lot of, I had my hands full with a lot of different things, so just not able to kind of keep up as much as I probably should. Well, I don't know if specific information, but of course we'll be continuing on as, you know, people approach us about, you know, doing the show. And I think as I move along and get to some periods where I'm kind of not in motion, that's when I'll have time to really think about what to do. But while you're kind of in motion, taking care of one task, it's kind of hard to kind of move your mind around. You have to kind of stay a little bit focused.
One wish I was granted, that wish would be for you.